Good evening. This is the Shadow Gallery, and my name is James Donnelly. Over the last couple weeks, I've been thinking very seriously about what I wanted to say here in this vlog, and the reasons that I want to make this video. Now, this is admittedly a bit of a departure from what I normally do. There have been the occasional injustices that I've brought forth on either my channel here with this account or on my older YouTube channel, which is on another account, which basically discussed the prevalent, let's call it right-wing media, the disgust that they seem to have over two things: the creation of Miles Morales as the ultimate Spider-Man, and the homophobia over the decision for the DC's New 52 to make the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, gay. So, I mean, these were pretty big headlines for a while when they first came out, and I felt that I needed to address them in order to help to find a way that hopefully we could start to, well, I mean, not start to, but at least continue some of the dialogue that was created there. Now, my hobby, if you will, is popular culture. What do I do here on these vlogs? I review films, I review comics, I talk about comics, I talk about films, and occasionally I talk about video games. I'm not a huge gamer. Now, I know that some of you who decided to watch this video have probably already turned it off or are about to turn it off by that admission. I don't own a huge stack or several huge stacks of video games. I like video games a lot. I think that they're, for the most part, they can be incredibly artistic, can tell beautiful stories, can tell, and in a lot of cases, they allow the player to kind of revert to their lizard brain and to just kill and destroy things. Usually people, or zombies, or robots, or what have you. Whatever the enemy. The destruction of the enemy ultimately is your goal in pretty much any video game. In a popular video game, in a major video game. Now, as of late, I have been watching Anita Sarkeesian's various vlogs about tropes versus women, their tropes versus women series. And particularly in video games. Of course, there are some where she's talking about, other popular culture tropes against women. And it's a great series for a number of reasons. First of all, it is very telling. There's a lot of stuff that's being pointed out that, as a gamer, even a casual gamer like myself, don't really notice until it's too late. Now, for instance, these are, of the games that I've owned, these are three of the games that she has openly discussed in regards to her tropes versus women video series. And so we have Hitman Absolution, we have Red Dead Redemption, and we have Watchdogs. Now, I'm not too crazy about this, just as a game in and of itself. I enjoyed some of the other Hitman series on my PS2, mostly because I had a code breaker and could turn on all the cheats and always get a perfect score without having to do anything. Because I play these ultimately to relax and step outside of myself for a while. Red Dead Redemption, I still think, is a really good game. It's fun to play. It's fun to be in the Old West. Watchdogs is just kind of a sack of shit. I mean, it's a lousy game with a lousy idea. And the only reason that I pre-ordered it is because I thought the premise was kind of interesting, and it was, open, it was an open world game set in Chicago, which is my hometown. That's basically the main reasons that I got it. But it's garbage. It's a terrible game, and I'm going to be trading it in very soon while it's still actually worth something. So now here's the thing. I don't want to get into a huge, never-ending debate about the worth, or what you believe, or what some of you may believe to be the lack of worth that her videos give to the world, or to the industry. But there's something very frightening going on right now. And it's only getting worse. And that's the thing that scares me. I'm married. My wife is currently upstairs sleeping because it's 12:45 it's 12:45 a.m. She has to work early. I don't. That's why I stay up. Now, she doesn't play these types of games. At least she plays games like, Crash, or, Crash Bandicoot, or she loves the game Limbo. She plays some of the, she played Tomb Raider, but she does play, other games as well. She loves the Alice series, the American McGee's Alice series. She doesn't really go in for the first-person or even third-person shooters. She's more of a, some of the games that I don't even really like. But I can see why she likes them is because usually there's no overt or even covert misogyny in a lot of the games that she does enjoy to play. Now, in some of the games that I play, obviously, there is not only covert, but overt misogyny. Does it make me dislike these games more? Here's the issue that I have, one of the issues that I have with her detractors, is that they feel, and if you're one of them and you're watching this, you feel that she's cherry picking elements of the game to constitute a view of how the entire industry and how all game developers are bred into a culture of misogyny. And that she and her ilk are ruining video games for the rest of us. Now, if you're one of these people, you know that that's not true as much as I know that's not true. She never, in any of her videos, in regards to these video games, says, don't buy this game. This is an awful game, and it should never be purchased by anybody because it has this moment here or that moment there. She is taking moments that examine tropes, that's what they are, that are familiar, that's what a trope is, to popular culture, and showing, hey, there seems to be a common thread here. And it's a little bit upsetting and conceivably can be pretty offensive to women because it's misogynistic. Inner point, for instance, about Hitman Absolution, where she talks about the strip clubs scene in which you can, walk through, and there are the NPCs, the female strippers, in which I saw one video where they're described as stripper, hooker, prostitute, whatever. They're all the same. That is, I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what the intent was of whoever it was that said that. Basically comparing a stripper, a hooker, and a prostitute, which, I mean, that's synonymous anyway. Hooker and prostitute, they're the same thing. But basically saying that a stripper is a whore, that's a little misogynistic. That's actually more than a little, it's a lot misogynistic. Okay? So, anyway, but where you do have the opportunity to kill them or to incapacitate them, but this is supposedly, now this is me watching some of the great male warrior Thunderfoot's videos, and basically saying, well, she's totally wrong because it doesn't incentivize the player because it takes away points. Well, there's a lot of things that you can do in that game that disincentivizes the player. But that doesn't stop some players from doing them. I have been subject to some of those things myself. For instance, just taking out your gun in the middle of the game and shooting a random person in the head, just to see what happens. Well, that's just, there's a creep factor that I admit that I have been party to. I'm not trying to paint myself as some kind of beacon of light. I've done stupid things in video games to other people. Sometimes, I mean, many of the times not meaning to. Like, you're supposed to save somebody and you end up shooting them by accident because you just miss your target. But the fact that the strippers, the exotic dancers, exist in this level and you are able to interact with them serves literally no purpose to the game. Because you can just move around them without being detected if you're smart, and if you're stupid, then they'll sound the alarm or they'll scream or whatever is supposed to happen in that scene if you don't do it properly. But the fact that you can either shoot them or beat them up and hide their bodies, which if you do hide their bodies after just incapacitating them, basically beating the crap out of them, and if you hide them, it gives you back the points that you lost for doing that. Now, of course, the argument there is that, well, she just did that. It's like, well, other players can too. That's the whole point. Is not that it's, well, she did that. So, and she's showing us, something that no gamer would ever do, then why is it in the game in the first place? That's a valid point. That's a valid argument. Or in Red Dead Redemption, where you choose on one of your side missions to assist. Well, I don't know if it's a side mission or if it is in fact part of the main mission, to assist a damsel in distress who is being physically abused, who ends up getting killed anyway. So literally everything you do there is for naught. You are just merely prolonging her fate. Now, of course, the argument against that it's male gamers. It's the extreme male warrior gamers of this tribe say, well, it's the Old West. That's how women were treated. It's like, they weren't all treated like that. And even if they were, what's the purpose of having this in your game? Other than to create, as she illustrates in her video, a gritty or edgy or, any other synonymous content that shows the game is for adults. By introducing these adult themes of abuse and rape and murder. And of course, there's in Watchdogs, where you are putting an end to, one of your missions involves putting an end to a sex slavery ring. Now, that sounds great in theory, because that's a good thing to do for people, is to stop a sex slavery ring. But the way that it's presented in the game is that, as you're walking through, all of the women, and you can look at some of the other videos, or you can watch a walkthrough video, all of the women are topless, bare-breasted, who are on this stage, who are being auctioned off. One of them is being led into some kind of cage, or is being led off basically to her fate as a sex slave. Now, why, again, does this game need this content other than to give it that edgy quality? It doesn't. And that's part of what Anita is saying. Now, here's one thing that I'm going to tell you also before I go any further. I don't agree with everything she says. Some of it is a little bit hard to swallow, and I won't go into really specific details. Just in regards to, I don't know, there were some issues that I had, particularly when she was calling out in comic books, personally, I don't like anything that attacks the Mass Effect trilogy, because that's my favorite trilogy of games of all time. But the points are still valid, even if I don't like them. You still have to agree with them. That there is, in all of the print ads for Mass Effect 3 and Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, was that they were all showing the male version of Commander Shepard, as opposed to the quote-unquote the Femme Shep, which is actually the character that I always like to play as, because there are, aside from maybe, I don't know, maybe about 20 or 30 games out of the thousands of games, it seems, or their game series anyway, there's very seldom a strong female protagonist that doesn't have to deal with the threat of rape or specific female violence. I mean, even for instance, Arkham City, which is, I consider to be one of the greatest games of all time, the word bitch is uttered a lot. A lot. Which is kind of surprising from a writer like Paul Dini. But again, it's adding that edgy quality. So, anyway, like I'm saying, I'm not just trying to parrot her points here. The overall purpose of why I'm making this vlog is for things like this. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is I'm sure you've probably seen it on the internet by now. You probably can't see it that well in this light, but what you're looking at right now is a series of tweets by a user named Kevin Dobson, who's obviously, it's a troll account, trolling Anita Sarkeesian by saying things like, I'm going to go to your apartment and it's blacked out because one can only assume that the address was written in there, and rape you to death. After I'm done, I'll ram a tire iron up your cunt. I'm going to rape your cunt with a pole. I'm going to kill your parents too. I've seen their house. So on and so forth. So, I mean, and then there's also, now this just discovered, little slice of decent humanity here. This is from Breitbart.com or the Breitbart London. So this is, of course, Breitbart, of course, being a very right-wing website, with the headline, "Feminist Bullies Tearing the Video Game Industry Apart." And it has this lovely picture here of the quote-unquote crazed feminist cat lady bully. Basically, it's a straw man in a picture. And the genius who wrote this, Milo Yiannopoulos, is basically saying, the more you learn about the latest scandal in the games industry, the more you start to sympathize with the frustrated male stereotype. Because an army of sociopathic feminist gamers and campaigners, abetted by achingly politically correct American tech bloggers, are terrorizing the entire community, lying and bullying and manipulating their way around the internet for profit and attention. Now, this does go on to make the same claims that we've heard over and over again about Zoe Quinn. And, not only do they feel not only does this writer feel the need to basically, degrade her game, which is Depression Quest. But then, of course, the continuous the sexual misconduct that she that was about like her cheating on her boyfriend and so on and so forth, because she wanted to gain some credibility or to get support as her role as a game developer. And then, of course, goes on to is one of the quote platoon of irritants in the media. One of them is, and then goes on about Anita herself. And, quote, some of them, such as Anita Sarkeesian, have no discernible higher purpose in life except to bother innocent games developers. The women purposefully court, then exploit, boisterous, unpleasant reactions from astonished male gamers and use them to attract attention to themselves. And then he goes, let's be honest. And he's really only talking about himself and a small, yet extremely vocal group. We're all feeling a niggling suspicion that death threats are, in quotes, sent to female agitators aren't all they're cracked up to be, and indeed there's no evidence that any violent threat against a prominent female figure in the media or technology industry has ever been credible. That is to say, that any feminist campaigner on the receiving end of internet trolling has ever been in any real danger. So first of all, that particular, it's an op-ed, like everything on Breitbart, because it doesn't actually do the news. And that's fine. I mean, First Amendment rights, although, you know, I mean, it's, people are free to speak their minds. But this is an example, and those tweets that I showed you are an example of what, are examples that we have seen of what's going on with people like Sarkeesian and Quinn, is that what, at least, now admittedly, I can't speak to Zoe Quinn. I don't know that much about her, but I do know more than just a passing amount about Anita Sarkeesian. Well, actually, it's probably just a passing amount, let's be honest. I don't know her personally. I have no real stake in, I shouldn't say that. Let me back that up. All I know about her, based on what I've read, either through Wikipedia or online or through YouTube, through other people's posts on YouTube, is that she is an incredibly divisive person. Now, the problem with these tweets, that op-ed piece that I just talked about, is that they do literally nothing to advance the dialogue. Nothing. It doesn't do anything. Now, if someone had put, let's say, on one of my vlogs, where I, for instance, now I just saw the remake of, the 2014 remake of Robocop, and it's probably, thus far, the worst film I've seen of 2014. It's a terrible, awful, you know, just pathetic piece of garbage, and it shouldn't really be viewed by anybody. Now, if I posted that, and if, I would say maybe 3 people told me that they were going to rape my ass and, you know, drink blood out of my bloody anus while they're stabbing me to death in my eyes, or something to that effect, I'd probably just say, you know what, fuck it, I'm done. I'm really done. I don't need this anymore. I don't need this agitation in my life. Now, by doing a vlog about my support for Anita Sarkeesian and what she's doing, I'm potentially putting a target on my own back. Now, probably not going to be a whole lot of views, because a lot of my videos don't get a whole lot of views. The only one that's gotten a lot of views, really, is where I talk about how awful a film Tim Burton's 1989 Batman is. Which is funny, because I still get some really trolly comments on that, but none of them contain death threats. And I wonder why that is. Could it be the fact that I am a straight white male? It is funny. Because, I mean, people have said some pretty hateful shit. I mean, you know, but it's the standard kind of trolly shit that you do see. You're an idiot, you're an asshole, you're a fuckhead, you know, you don't know anything about movies, blah, 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 blah. That kind of stuff. But no death threats, no threats of violence, just things like buy yourself a new brain, or that kind of stuff. You know, pretty standard YouTube awfulness. But over the course of the last couple of weeks, months, years, that ante has been upped because women who represent, they are the fastest growing demographic in gaming. They're the fastest growing demographic in comics reading. When they decide to start a dialogue about something that is endemic in these pop culture giants, I mean, let's face it, comics and video games are really huge. Billions of people either, play video games and or read comics, or at least see the movies that the comics are based on. Because yes, there's a much smaller audience for comic book readers than there are for film goers. That will always be true. So why is it that when a woman goes online and says, okay, I want to raise money through Kickstarter so that I can create a better YouTube channel, that I can make my videos more accessible, and to be able to, play these games. Now, of course, then when you talk about that, then here come the other people, from the extreme end of the aisle that always say, oh, well, she's just ripping people off. And even that Breitbart piece talks about her Kickstarter launch and how, well, if you want to feel good, if left-wing liberals want to feel good about themselves for a few minutes, they can donate a couple of bucks to her Kickstarter. And it literally does nothing except self-serving and in many cases self-aggrandizing themselves as champions of the, even again, the Breitbart piece explicitly says you're starting to feel sympathy for the average male gamer. What? What does that contribute to our society, or even just to this conversation, other than just saying, you know what, I'm better than you are? That's all it's saying. That's all that op-ed piece said. That's all he does. I'm better than you are, Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn, without providing any proof other than the fact that I'm writing for Breitbart.com and I get to do this. I'm a better person than you are because you've done these things that have made me angry and have made others angry, so angry that they tweet horrible things to you, and it's your fault. That's, again, is the gist of the Breitbart piece. And the tweets, again, a great many of them are trolls. And yes, there has been no definitive proof that one of these people has attempted to assault a feminist online. Although, I know that the standard rules of engagement for, for instance, in the time of war. Again, this is very hyperbolic, and it's just as an illustration. Rules of engagement are: do not fire until fired upon. Now, and in this country, and in pretty much every other country, well, most other countries, yes, there does, the burden of proof is on the prosecutor to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this person did intend to do this thing that they're being tried for. Well, that is the justice system. But here we are in a society where the warm blanket of internet anonymity has allowed people to get away with these kind of threats. Now, if one of these people saw Anita Sarkeesian or Zoe Quinn on the street and walked up to them and said, "I'm going to rape you and drink blood out of your cunt," I would think, or just any person, anywhere, if someone walked up to you and said, "I'm going to rape you, murder you, kill your parents," all these things to your face, hopefully the first thing that you would do would be to call 911 and tell them where that person went. Now, there's no real way of proving intent in the official law enforcement capacity of, is a threat credible online, since all you're doing is sending words out through cyberspace, and then those words come to the person that they're aimed at. And, well, I don't know whether to take this seriously or not, but to err on the side of caution seems like a good idea. Because who knows? Because this is America. It's one of the most, I haven't read the statistics, but it certainly is one of the most violent-natured, civilized countries in the world. I don't hate our country. I love America. But we've got problems. And that's true. And we all know it. Whatever you think the problem might be, we have problems. We're not a perfect country, but we're a great country. Because I have the ability to do this. Now, of course, then there's the complainers about, well, Sarkeesian turns off all of her comments on YouTube, so we can't respond to her. Well, when she's getting tweets like that, do you really think that it would be in that person's best interest to respond to that? No. No sane, rational person would expect, okay, well, I'm going to threaten you online and hope that you respond to me. And even she, I mean, to be perfectly honest, has, by capturing screenshots of what she has posted against her on Twitter, And, you know, because that's the only real way of exposing something like that. Because as soon as that stuff goes up, the account is cleared out, the IP address is, you know, whatever, is done away with, and, you know, the dialogue has ended. Now, there are some people out there who have taken the time to make response videos to Sarkeesian and her and defending what they believe is right against her point of view. Now, there are some people that do this, and I saw one that was done in a somewhat respectful fashion. At least it wasn't filled with vitriol, and it actually kind of captured some legitimate concerns that some people might have. I didn't have a problem with the video, per se. I didn't agree with it, but I didn't really have a problem with it either. But once you get into the comment box on that person's video, that's where you see it really turn ugly. And then people wonder, well, why doesn't she? And it's like, why do you think? I mean, this person has it going on their video just about her and how they don't agree. And then you do have Thunderfoot, and there's also this genius on Breitbart who basically, they accuse her. Now, admittedly, I don't know if Thunderfoot has done this, but they accuse people like Quinn and Sarkeesian of manufacturing threats just so they can get publicity. Again, this is another, it's like, why? Why would somebody do that in reality? I mean, that's a great like evil movie villain type of plan, like like you might see on Lifetime, or even in let's harken back to 1974 in Dirty Harry, where Scorpio has himself beaten up, and then claims that, well, Callahan did it. Now, this is the real world. What purpose would it serve if they did this and were caught? Because I'm sure there are people kind of monitoring what she does and what these women do a lot of the time. Because, frankly, they don't have anything better to do with their lives, it seems. Now, I know that even, Thunderfoot apparently has a PhD in physics or what have you. So, I mean, obviously this is an intelligent human being. So, what... The time to just stop and really think about what you're about to say, whether it is into a video camera or to say it online through a tweet or through a Facebook post. Literally, I mean, it is a culture that we have fostered for better and for worse. There is no or. It's great and it's terrible. This kind of instant gratification of, this is a thought I just had, I'm going to tweet it, or I'm going to update my Facebook status. The time of the era of thinking before you post is long gone. That essentially died with MySpace, effectively. Because at least with MySpace, you had to at least write stuff and you had to wait for it to be put, people would write blogs. I did it, a lot of it. And some of it is maybe a little bit contrary to some of the things that I'm talking about here. But, I mean, in regards to, okay, I like to see women's breasts. Okay? But, there's, and that there is a certain objectification that comes along with, with women and with men too. Again, it's, it's part of the culture. Okay, there's no escaping it, really. And all of the, at least Anita Sarkeesian, all she's trying to do is to have, is to start a conversation, not necessarily with her. Her job is to take it off. I mean, it's literally like, okay, well, I'm watching Bill O'Reilly, for instance. I never do, really. I've watched him a couple of times because my father's a Fox News fan, and I've stayed at his house a couple of times and watched him watch it. And I will say something to the television in my head, obviously not to the television. What the fuck are you talking about? Basically, is what goes through my mind. But I don't expect O'Reilly to respond to what I have posited towards him in my head. I wouldn't even dream to think about, finding Bill O'Reilly's, if he had one, Facebook account or whatever, and saying, what, you're a tremendous hypocritical loser, and you're an awful human being when you're on this channel. Or vice versa, if I were to see, if someone out there on the other end of the political spectrum was watching Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert or John Oliver on one of their shows and said, you know what, you guys are commie pinko jerks. But you can't expect a dialogue there. Okay, all it's doing is it's creating a conversation to have amongst ourselves. You cannot hold somebody who is saying, here's what I'm going to be talking about today, and doesn't invite you to give feedback. You can't expect them to engage in a dialogue with you because they're not having a dialogue. They're delivering a monologue, much like what I'm doing right now. And this is going on very long. We're going to stop soon. But really, the main point, and this sums up the whole video, is that if you're going to contribute something to the dialogue, and you think that she's wrong, don't keep proving her right. Okay? Be respectful. Think about how you would speak to your wife, or your girlfriend, or your daughter, or your mother, or your aunt, or whoever. Someone that you care about, or even someone that you might even dislike. And say, you know what? I'm not going to tell this person, I'm not going to say this awful thing to this person just because I can hide behind who I am online. Think about it in a way that you would speak to anybody that you would deal with in your social interactions on a day-to-day basis. I know that seems like it's a lot to ask, but it's really not. That's the whole thing. If we all just took a second, me included, to calm down and allow our thinking brains, as opposed to our lizard brains, to do the work, to do the heavy lifting, then maybe there would be dialogue. instead of just a presentation of ideas. Maybe. But again, that's not on her. That's on us. We're the ones that have to make the conversation real. I stand with Anita Sarkeesian. Thank you for watching.